Now, in this video, we're going to look at what we would need to do if we were looking at finding the investment, so how much money we need to put in. So we're going to be using the exact same formula. So long as it's compound interest, we can use this formula. So it says, how much would Hannah need to invest at a rate of 3.5% to have 1,500 in 2 years? So what I would do first is I would have my formula written out. As soon as I know that it's compound interest, I would write out my formula, and then I would begin to identify what I have and what I need to know. So how much would Hannah need to invest? So what I'm looking for is what she needs to put in. So that's the question mark. That's the piece we don't know. The next thing we know is that it's at a rate of 3.5%. So what I need to do is I'm going to need to identify that as my interest. Now remember, interest has to be put into the formula as a decimal, so we'll have to be careful there. We know that the final value, so it says that they want her to have 1,500 in 2 years. That's the final value, and it's in 2 years, so we're going to highlight that in purple. So there's all our information, and we're going to sub it into the formula. So always, and you would have done this with other chapters as well, or other areas, we always write down the formula. Okay, so another area that's important to write down the formula is coordinate geometry of the line. So remember, you've got distance formula, slope formula, midpoint formula, and things like that that you'll need to be writing down. For financial maths, there's only one formula that you need to remember, and that is F is equal to P multiplied by 1 plus I to the power of t. Now, one thing to remember with this calculation is that the BIMDAS rules apply. So things that you would have learned in first year, BIMDAS, those rules apply here. They apply to all maths questions, but we especially need to be careful of them in this question here. So what I'm going to do is fill in what I know now, and I'm going to keep this in mind as I do my calculations. So I'm going to have 1,500 is equal to P, which we don't know, so I'm going to leave it the same letter. So P multiplied by 1 plus I. Now remember, I must be put in as a decimal. So we've got 3.5%, which is going to be 0.035. And then we're going to close our bracket, and it's T, which is time, which we've identified as being 2 years. So then what I need to do, before I can move things around and manipulate this formula, I need to tidy up my brackets. So remember the BIMDAS rule. Rule number 1 is tidy up the brackets. So I first need to tidy this up. So what I would write that as is 1.035. So that added together gives us 1.035, and it's still to the power of 2, it's still multiplied by P, and it's equal to 1,500 still. Now, the next thing that would happen is I would be squaring this out. Now, normally we would square that out first before we do anything else, but I would guess that when I put that into my calculator, that it works out to be a long decimal number. And when I do that, we get 1.071225. I don't want to keep writing that out, so I'm going to keep it as this for the moment and ask myself, okay, I know that that will happen first, but what could I do to it next? What would the next thing be? Well, if I want to get P on its own, and it's currently being multiplied by this, how do I undo multiplication? I need to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by this. So I'm going to divide this side by this here, and I'm also going to divide the other side by the same thing. Now, what will happen if I divide my left-hand side by this? Well, that would be the same number divided by itself. If I have 2 divided by 2, that becomes 1. If I have 7 divided by 7, that becomes 1. And if I have 1.035 squared divided by 1.035 squared, that becomes 1. So that will give us 1 when we simplify it down. And what we're left with then is 1,500 all over that is equal to P. So all I'm left with then is that P is equal to the other side. So I'm going to copy this here just to speed it up for us. And now that is something that I can put into my calculator. So I'm going to put into my calculator 1500 all over 1.035 to the power of 2. And then what that will give me is the principal value, what we have to invest. So that's going to equal to, when I do that in my calculator, 1400.2, and I'd have to round it, so 0.27.